cities usually inherit their past through the people who live in them. When borders move, those people often stay, and the city changes gradually. But occasionally, that process breaks completely. A city is destroyed. Its population is removed entirely, and the people who arrive afterward rebuild it, carefully, accurately, to look exactly as it was. When that happens, a basic question stops being straightforward. Who does the city belong to? Before it was tied to any modern nation, this city existed for a much simpler reason. It sat where a major river met the Baltic Sea. From inland regions, grain and raw materials flowed downriver. From across northern Europe, ships arrived with finished goods, salt, and tools. This made the city valuable because of movement, not control. From the medieval period onward, it became part of the Hanseatic League, a network of trading cities across the Baltic and North Sea. The Hanseatic League was not a country. It had no capital and no army. Its power came from trade coordination and shared commercial rules. In Hanseatic cities, merchants mattered more than kings. City councils were dominated by trading families. Wealth showed itself in warehouses, churches, guild halls, and merchant houses, not palaces. This city followed that model closely. Its most important buildings were tied to commerce, markets, docks, cranes, and long rows of narrow houses facing the street and the river. Its skyline reflected trade and religion, not royal authority. Over time, German became the dominant language, not through conquest, but through trade and migration. Political borders shifted around it. At different times, it was linked to Polish rulers, Prussia, and later Germany. Those changes affected administration. They did not change what the city was. For centuries, the pattern stayed stable. Goods moved, ships arrived, merchants governed, families lived there for generations. For most of its history, the city didn't need to ask who it belonged to. Its purpose was clear. Its population was continuous. Its identity came from what it did. That long stability is what makes what happened next so disruptive. That long stability ended abruptly in the final months of the Second World War. By early 1945, the city was on the path of the advancing Soviet army. Heavy fighting followed. Artillery bombardment, fires, and street battles reduced most of the historic centre to ruins. By the time the fighting stopped, more than 90% of the old city was destroyed. But the destruction did not end with the buildings. As the front approached, much of the German population fled westward. Those who remained were expelled in the months that followed. Families were given little notice. They were assembled, transported, and removed from the city entirely. Within a short period of time, a population that had lived there for centuries was gone. This was not a gradual demographic shift. It was a complete break. For the first time in the city's history, control changed without continuity. The streets, the plots, and the ruins remained. The people who knew them did not. The city itself was nearly empty. At the same time, Poland's borders were being redrawn. The country lost large eastern territories to the Soviet Union. Cities like Lwów and Wilno were no longer part of Poland. Millions of Poles were displaced as a result. Many of them were sent west into cities they had never seen before, including this one. The new arrivals did not come as settlers following opportunity. They came as refugees, often traumatized, often grieving losses of their own. They arrived in a city of ruins, with unfamiliar streets and unfamiliar buildings. This meant the city now faced two layers of rupture at once. The original population was gone, and the new population had no historical connection to the place they were being asked to inhabit. At that moment, the city had no living memory to guide what it should become next. What followed was not inevitable, it was a choice. At this point, the future of the city, Gdańsk, known for centuries as Danzig, was undecided. The historic centre lay in ruins. The population that had built and inhabited it was gone. The people now arriving had no personal or familial connection to what had existed before. In practical terms, there was little reason to rebuild the city as it had been. Post-war Poland faced severe housing shortages. Entire regions were devastated. Resources, labour and time were all limited. Across much of Eastern Europe, destroyed cities were rebuilt using modern planning principles. Wider streets, standardised apartment blocks, functional layouts designed for speed and efficiency. This city could easily have followed that pattern. Starting over would have been faster. It would have been cheaper. It would also have aligned with a clear political message, a break from the German past. Instead, Polish planners and authorities made a different choice. They decided to reconstruct the old city. This was not a symbolic gesture, it was a technical and administrative decision. Reconstruction began with documentation. Surviving foundations were recorded, pre-war photographs were collected, architectural plans from the German period were studied in detail. The goal was not to create a general old town. It was to recreate specific buildings on their original plots, at their original scale. Street layouts followed pre-war alignments. Facade proportions were matched closely. Distinctive architectural features were restored deliberately. This approach required more time and more resources than building something new. But it produced a city that visually matched what had existed before the war. What makes this decision striking is the context in which it was made. At the same time as Reconstruction was underway, German cultural presence was being removed. Place names were changed. German inscriptions were erased. The former population had been expelled. The city's social and cultural continuity was rejected. Its physical form was preserved. The result was a city rebuilt to resemble its German past, in a state that defined itself in opposition to Germany, inhabited by people who had not built it and had not lived in it before. This outcome was neither obvious nor inevitable. It was the product of a deliberate choice about what to erase and what to keep, and that choice would define the city that emerged. Today, the city appears continuous. Its historic centre is coherent and intact. Street layouts are consistent. Building heights align. Architectural styles match closely from one block to the next. To a visitor, the city reads as preserved rather than rebuilt. In functional terms, the reconstruction succeeded. The city operates as a major urban centre. It supports tourism, commerce, and local administration. Its rebuilt core is one of its main economic assets and a central part of its identity. However, that continuity exists only at the level of form. Most of the buildings in the historic centre date from the post-war decades. They follow historical designs, but they are not original structures. Materials, construction methods, and infrastructure are modern. More significantly, the social continuity is absent. The population that built the original city does not live there. The families who occupied those buildings for generations are gone. The language, customs, and everyday practices that once animated those spaces ended in the mid-20th century. The people who live in the city today inherited the urban layout, not the lived memory. That does not make the city artificial in a simple sense. It makes it unusual. The city presents a historical environment that no longer has direct heirs. Its past is maintained institutionally rather than socially. The identity on display belongs to a world that no longer exists. The trading networks that once defined the city are gone. The political structures that sustained it are gone. The population that gave it continuity is gone. What remains is a city that functions effectively in the present, while carrying a carefully preserved version of its past. It is stable, it is successful, but it is also unresolved. Gdańsk survived because a clear distinction was made. Its people were removed. Its culture was rejected. But its physical form was preserved. That choice allowed the city to continue functioning, even after complete social rupture. What exists today is not continuity in the traditional sense. It is continuity of structure without continuity of population. The city does not belong to those who built it. It does not belong to those who inherited it. It belongs to the decision that preserved its form while accepting the loss of everything else. And that decision, more than any border or identity, is what defines it now. For more captivating adventures and explorations of incredible places around the world, click on the video on screen now. Your next journey awaits. Happy travels.